We go right into the review of the Valero Texas Open. I know you're here for the Masters. If you want to skip ahead, there are timestamps down below. What this does, what I want it to do for you, is to understand the bucket system success rate. It's very high. Usually I get 33 to 36 buckets correct, but I like to show the proof. So when we're reviewing this, this is the bucket system for the Valero Texas Open. You're going to see something similar for the Masters. Look at this column here. It's this year's totals. I keep track of what was successful and what wasn't. Everything marked as a Y was successful. Now, how does this field, because it's formula driven. Basically, I'm taking the projections that I talked about in the preview, like I'll be doing in this video, comparing it to not only the top 10, but also the optimal lineup. So I'm doing a count. How many golfers from this bucket, from the last year one bucket, finished inside the top 10? 1. Does that fit inside my projection of 0 to 2? Remember, we always round down in this minimum projection bucket. We always round up in the maximum projection. Well, 1 does fit inside 0 to 2, so therefore the bucket was successful. So when you review this, what I'm going to ask you to do, instead of me going bucket by bucket, pause the video, take a screenshot again, and that way you can validate it against me. But guess what? 36 out of 36 buckets were correct. My projections of the golfers being inside the top 10, 100% correct. And quite frankly, I've never had anything lower than 31 out of the 36 buckets correct. On average, it's about 33, 34, if I'm being honest with you. But with that information, you can still create lineups that take down GPPs, even if the bucket system isn't 100% successful. And in fact, I create a lineup at the end of the week, after all the scoring has been done. If you were to follow the bucket system, could you have taken down a GPP? So let me show you how that looks. I keep that information right up here. Now, the point totals are within each of these boxes. I'm not going to reveal those yet. But when we talk about the optimal versus the GPP during the Valero Texas Open, the optimal left $1,900 on the table. I'm not someone that would recommend that. I think it's way too difficult. You open yourself up to so many different lineup combinations when you leave more money on the table. I'm all about restricting the amount of lineups you can actually create, following simple salary logic, as well as following the bucket system. And when you do that, you can't build as many lineups. So my rule is don't leave more than $1,000 on the table. Really, I like to try to advocate for only leaving $500 on the table. Like, I try to encourage you not to leave more than $500 on the table. So getting to the optimal lineup is pretty impossible. 48,100 was your top 6 golfers. Well, when it comes to DraftKings points, but also it was, oh, actually that isn't so obvious when it comes to like the top 6 golfers that scored. Sometimes you can't fit them under the salary cap. This week you can. And that was Corey Connors at 10,000, Matt Kuchar at 9,000, Sam Stevens at 7,000, Ryder at 7,000, Rogers at 7,000, and then Ches Reavie at $6,300. So your top 6 DraftKings scorers were those golfers. $1,900 were left on the table. That is not realistic to me, and it doesn't follow the sweet spot process. Now, your GPP winning lineup left $300 on the table, and it's all the golfers here highlighted in blue. You can see there's only 5 guys there. Got to scroll down a little bit to get to Brendan Todd, which was the remaining golfer in that guy's lineup. Again, left $300 on the table. And when we compare the optimal, which scored 644 points, to the GPP winning lineup that scored 612, we can see there's a bit of a gap. There's definitely a lot of wiggle room where you could have taken down a GPP. Obviously, the guy that did, congratulations. That's awesome. Or girl, sorry. Now, if we were to follow the bucket system, that's what the sweet spot lineup is right here. Could we have taken down a GPP? Well, we would have used $49,200. So we're following that sweet spot process of not leaving more than $1,000 on the table. We're leaving $800 on the table. And it includes a 10K golfer in Corey Connors, 9K golfer in Matt Kuchar, and 4 7K golfers, Sam Stevens, Sam Ryder, Patrick Rogers, and Byung-Hun An. Again, that left $800 on the table, and it scored 640.5 points. So that was 3.5 points behind the optimal lineup. To me, it makes sense because the buckets were 100% successful. If we were to follow in the buckets, chances are we were going to get really close to hitting the optimal lineup. And again, this is me after the week is done. I plug in all the DraftKings points into my optimizer with the golfers, follow the bucket system. Here, I'll even bring it up on screen because I still have it sorted through. So basically what I do is I grab the top 20 golfers that scored on DraftKings, keep all of the bucket conditionals that I had for the preview and the strategy video. So when I go over this in the strategy video, you're going to see the numbers didn't change. So I keep all the buckets here. We go over the Marquee Tee Times the same way, as well as the Tee Times. I'm leaving 49, minimum salary 49,000. And here is the most optimal lineup following the SweetSpot process. So again, it was 3.5 points behind the optimal lineup. I think it's super easy to get there, or I shouldn't say super easy to get there. Following the SweetSpot process would have won you a GPP as long as you went with Corey Connors at 10K, Matt Kuchar at 9, which by the way was like my most combined duo in all of my lineups. I had a guy who missed a cut here and there, and I got all my money back. I'm happy with that. So it was very successful for me. The other missing piece that comes with the SweetSpot process is the Marquee Tee Times. So basically what I like to do is look at the top 9 groups, and as long as we have at least 2 golfers that are in the optimal lineup, it's been successful. And that is the rule when it comes to the Marquee Tee Times. We'll talk about this in the strategy video tomorrow, but we're looking at the top 9 groups, and you want to select 2 to 4 groups and only 1 golfer from those in those groups to represent your lineups. So obviously we had Patrick Rogers, who was in the optimal, the SweetSpot optimal, and the GPP winning lineup. We also had Corey Connors that was also in the optimal, the GPP winning lineup, and the SweetSpot optimal. So those 2 golfers, if you had just anchored around them, you were doing good. And obviously then you could see Matt Kuchar was just below them in the 10th best group. I mean, shoot, we have a lot of our optimal SweetSpot optimal guys very close to each other. Again, not all playing together. So Sam Ryder, Kevin Chappell, Pat Kazire, Benny Ann was with Matthias Schwab, and Kevin Tway, which was Barry's guy, by the way, one of his 6K guys. He believes he's a 6K whisperer. Not so much that week. You can see all 6 golfers that were in the SweetSpot optimal. Looks like the optimal lineup as well. We're not playing together. That's the whole idea of the Marquee Tee Times. Find 2 to 4 groups, 1 golfer from each of those groups, put them in your lineups, and then go from there. This is also included in the optimizer. Like I have this built as the logic that appears in the optimizer. So it'll already do it for you. So if you're interested in that optimizer, again, I'll go over it during the strategy video tomorrow, Tuesday night, 7 p.m. If you want access to it, contact me there, SweetSpotDFS@gmail.com. Comment down below. Just let me know that you're interested in the optimizer, and I will send it your way. That is the review, though, of the Valero Texas Open.